He seems like he has it. Yeah, I pause and you just move. It's kind of obvious when you have to move to the next one, but thank you. Yeah, I think we're good now.
Recording in progress.
Why does my heart feel so bad? Why does my soul feel so bad?
gonna get started in 30 seconds or a minute or so. All right. Welcome everybody to the 27th Lido Node Operator Community Call. We've got a nice agenda lined up just with Lido contributors this time around, no external speakers, but quite a lot of interesting topics. So without further ado, first up we have Sasha, who's gonna tell us about the ValSet updates over the last month. Sasha, whenever you're ready, please share your screen and take it away.
Yes, thank you. I am ready. And the scariest moment usually in these calls is the moment when I need to share my screen. So I hope it goes smoothly this time. Yes. All right. Yeah, we can get started and the ValSet updates and yes, first off, we have some news about our modules, namely Simple DVT and Community Staking that got quite a bit deposits over March, I have to say. So there was more than 100,000 ETH flow to these modules, bringing about 35 new active operators to the Lido protocol, which is super exciting. So with this new deposit, CSM, as you can see here, hit its stake share limit in terms of like active validators, occupying its entire capacity. And Simple DVT has around like half of its capacity free for new stake allocations. So with this news about community staking hitting the limit, some of you might wonder what is next for CSM. And well, I'm wondering too, and I will leave it up to Dima to reveal these details later on, because there was some interesting document published on the research forum that basically explains what to expect next from CSM. So I'll keep it for later to Dima to tell all the details, or at least some details about that. And while the next iteration that Dima will be talking about of CSM code is now being like baked, the community staking team keeps improving its current version in terms of UI, because the UI is the like easiest part to upgrade, to improve, while like smart contracts require like a lot of thorough attention, audits, and time. So we can keep playing with UI. And in March, we released the new functionality that allows node operator to voluntarily provide details such as their contact information, their previous experience or current experience, their infrastructure setup, in order to help Lido protocol to increase its like transparency. Because this information later on will be used to build Venom reports. I'm sure that all of you heard of this, which is basically the report that like reflects like the current state of the protocol in terms of node operators infrastructure from different angles, like from setups, from client distribution, from geographical distribution, and so on. So, and why I call this an improvement is because, like, for example, contact information was collected via like custom forms before from CSM node operators who are willing to share this information. And now it's just super easy for node operators to submit it using just common interface they use for other operations on CSM UI, like uploading keys or managing their reward and manager addresses and so on. So another big and exciting thing that happened in March was the snapshot vote for SSV Lido module that was approved by the DAO. And at the last, if I recall correctly, it was at the last node operator community call, Alan introduced this module to our community. But to summarize it short, this is a permissionless staking module leveraging SSV Network's DV technology that will allow for like automated cluster formation that will lower even the current barriers in terms of bond, thanks to the like DVT, because it requires less net bond from every single operator, because this bond is split between multiple participants of the cluster. So the approval of the snapshot vote means that the high-level design that was outlined in the proposal that was published on the research forum is approved now, and the development team can proceed with the testnet and with like the further preparations for the module implementation. And as it is outlined in the proposal, we'll be waiting for more news on that over the upcoming quarter. And I think that with that said, we can move to another item that is Lido protocol transition from Haleski to Hudi. And like for sure, with like no doubts, all of you are aware of the Haleski situation and the rapid transition to the new testnet. And so here the main point is that all the necessary parts of the Lido protocol that required for like normal operation of the protocol has been moved to Hudi. And as for today, we have more than 14,000 keys active there on Hudi, within Lido protocol, I mean, and the Pectra hard fork went smoothly with all the checks passed. So, and I think this is the last slide, and before I wrap up my section, I want to mention that there is a very interesting blog post published on the research forum again, about the future considerations of the Lido protocol and anticipating Pectra hard fork. So while the first blog post that was published in February, it describes details around like immediate changes required for Pectra upgrade in the Lido protocol, this second blog post has some details on like how the implementation of max effective balance and consolidation should be considered from the point of view of the Lido protocol. And I think that that is it for today. It was super short. I'm proud of myself, and I am happy to give the mic back to Izzy.
Oh, all right. I thought we were going to go straight up with the presentation of Dima that you laid up so well, and we will actually. So Dima is presenting his screen on CSM Evolution, and now he's going to tell us a little bit more about what the future holds for the community staking module.
Easy. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here and present some details and information that we have ready for you today about CSM Evolution and what's next about our beloved CSM. But for sure, yes, presentation is not working. But before we will jump into the evolution of CSM, let's take a look at the current state of CSM, which I'm proud to say is pretty impressive. So since the permissionless transition in the very end of January 2025, CSM got additional 72 node operators registered, with the total number currently sitting at 412 node operators. That's pretty impressive given that CSM has been live on mainnet for less than 6 months now. Next thing, active validators. So during the early adoption period, there was a limit on the maximum number of validators for each node operator of 12 validators, and only participants from the early adoption list were able to join. So even though the total number of node operators was relatively high, the total number of active validators was somewhere around 2K. But now we got additional 4,000 active validators, and CSM is currently filled in to the top with its share limit being 2% and the current share being 2%. Okay, but now you will ask, you now have a lot of validators in CSM, but how does it impact the performance of the protocol? Because curated operators are known to be well-performing and doing great. And I have an answer for you. CSM is performing above any other permissionless staking solution on Ethereum market, with the average 30-day performance, according to Rated.network, of 97%, which is absolutely amazing given that the network average is just slightly higher than this value. And the network is definitely populated mostly by professional operators. So for the permissionless module, where independent home and community stakers are validating, that's a great result, and I'm pretty proud of it. And all that comes with the additional safety guarantees for the protocols and STETH holders, because all of this 6K validators are secured by more than 10,000 STETH worth of bond, which means that even in a catastrophic slashing scenario for CSM at a current scale, all the losses for the STETH holders will be covered from the bond. Now let's talk about evolution, about future of CSM. And there's three main points that Lido contributors see the evolution of CSM moving towards. The first one is for sure scaling of CSM, because current 2% is very small. That's definitely not the final point here. The second thing is that community staking module is called community staking module for a reason, and this reason is community stakers, independent home stakers, managed stakers, or you name that, independent people running validators for Ethereum. And the second main goal of CSM Evolution is to keep facilitating participation of community stakers as much as possible, moving the current limits of Ethereum network of incentives for community stakers on Ethereum network to a brand new level. And the third one, which is definitely not the last here, is competitive fee structure. Because if CSM wants to scale, if Lido contributors wants to scale CSM, if Lido DAO members wants to scale CSM, the fee structure in the module should be competitive with the market and not present any inconsistencies or uncertain conditions. So let's talk about scaling. CSM currently sitting at 2% of Lido protocol TVL, and at the same time, 2% is its current share limit, which means that new validators can be added, or not added, but deposited in CSM only if the protocol TVL increases, and 2% of each protocol TVL increase might be allocated to CSM, which limits the free spots for new home and community stakers. And the ultimate goal of the evolution of CSM is to change this number from 2% to something around 10% or maybe even more. And that's all in 2025. That's an ambitious goal, and it comes with a lot of challenges and complicated things to overcome, but we definitely have a solution for it. And as Lido contributors, we believe that this goal is achievable. So this goal, to achieve this goal, and while still maintain the participation of community stakers and not just fill in the whole module with professional operators, there should be some special treatment and special conditions for community stakers. And it's very hard to actually distinguish professional node operators and home and community stakers, judging only by on-chain data, while not asking for some form of KYC or proof of real identity. And that's a challenging task, and it comes in two parts. So the first one is how to identify these community stakers. And this part has been heavily worked on and will be revealed, I believe, in the nearest future for the review of the community. And the next thing is for sure technical implementation on CSM level, because currently CSM only support different bond requirements for early adopters and for permissionless participants. But there's definitely more parameters and more special conditions that can be offered for the community stakers. And this is one of the topics of CSM evolution. And finally, fees. As I mentioned before, CSM can only offer different bonding requirements for different node operator types, and there's only 2 node operator types currently in CSM. Well, that should be changed. And that should be changed in favor of community stakers so that professional operators and large stakers will not benefit from this incredible 6% staking fee, which is unseen for the market. And if you will look around and you will look at the other staking protocols, basically the combination of a current bond requirement in CSM and 6% staking fee is basically unseen. So instead of giving 6% to everyone, no matter the type of the node operator, no matter the size of the node operator, in CSM Evolution, we see the approach when we transition to 6%, but for community stakers exclusively and at a certain scale. All these 3 directions would require a lot of tech research, and so on. And while research is still in progress, and we will share it slightly later, we can already share some information about tech. And this tech is CSM version 2. And here's a short summary picture, like the shortest possible TLDR that I was able to come up with, describing the main aspects of CSM v2. So let's start with the top left corner, entry gates and extensions. As we all know, CSM is not just an product for users, because there's a lot of integrations on top of CSM. There's a lot of different other protocols willing to build on top of CSM, willing to integrate with CSM. And even though currently all these integrations are for sure possible, we want to extend this approach. We want to make CSM even more friendly for integrations and allow for a modular level on top of CSM that would allow parties like DVT operators or other staking protocols or whoever else to extend the functionality of CSM by developing their own extensions. And it will also allow Lido DAO to create different entry gates or pathways for different types of node operators to distinguish them between each other and to offer them these special conditions. And moving down, we see custom parameters for node operator types. So the overall concept of node operator types will be introduced in CSM version 2, and it will allow for a way more precise customization of each and every aspect of node operators and validators operating within CSM. So things like priority queues will now be available for the identified community stakers. Custom reward shares that would allow for this tailored fee structure system would also be available and will be configurable differently for different node operator types, as well as custom performance threshold and much, much more. So basically any parameter in CSM will now be available for configuration for a specific node operator type, which will open huge possibilities for Lido DAO to reason about the quality of the node operators, the types of the node operators, and for sure incentives for small home and community stakers. But these are the new features that we are very excited about. And at the same time, there's several things that were definitely missing in CSM version 1 in terms of operational reliability and of protocol safety. And one of them is Performance Oracle. As you all guys know, currently CSM Performance Oracle only tracks the attestation, not even success rate, but attestation submission rate, which is definitely a great proxy for the validator uptime. However, it does not fully reflect the validator performance and the validator contribution to the overall Ethereum network. That's why an improved Performance Oracle will be introduced in CSM version 2 that will also account for block proposals and sync committee votes accuracy. And as I mentioned before, each and every parameter in CSM will now be configurable, which means that the weight coefficients between these between the success rate of these different duties like attestations, block proposals, and sync committee votes will also be configurable depending on the node operator type. And for community stakers, the emphasis might be placed on attestations so that the conditions in terms of performance would still remain the same, and community stakers will not suffer any penalties or missed rewards because of their not perfect sync committee participation. Because as we all know, if you are validating from a distant location, say Argentina, you have high chances of missing several sync committee votes compared to the professional operators validating from a huge data centers. The next thing that was missing in CSM version 1 is the way to deal with a systematic bad performance. And that's why the strike system will be introduced. So after getting a certain amount of strikes, the validator will be ejected, and the strike will be assigned for a bad performance within a frame. So if your validator will be systematically performing badly for a relatively long period of time, it will now be ejected from the community staking module to maintain performance of the protocol and to maintain stable APR for STF holders and other CSM participants. And to enable this feature, we for sure need to support a brand new EIP 7002 that will go live on mainnet as soon as May 7th with Spectra upgrade. So it would not only allow for the forced ejection of bad performance, but it will also open new possibilities for the home stakers who had lost their keys for some reason, or who are willing to exit their validators while being away from their validation machine and not being able to access their validator keys. And that was just the shortened gist of what is coming in CSM version 2. If you are looking for more information, scan the QR code on the screen and give it a deep dive. And by the way, all research forum posts and all the documents that are published by Lido contributors are open to comments or to anyone. And if you believe that something is missing, or if you have any questions, make sure to submit them on research forum or directly in the document describing CSM version 2. And that was it about CSM future. If we trust, and let's keep CSM, let's keep scaling CSM, let's keep CSM for community stakers, and let's increase the number of home and community stakers on Ethereum network together. Thank you.
Dima, you'll forgive me if you covered this in the meeting because I had to step away for a second, but one of the questions that we've gotten in the Discord a couple of times is, will CSM v2 have OX02 or basically like increased MaxiB support?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from the get-go, CSM version 2 will not have OX02 withdrawal credentials, and there's several reasons for it. First of all, the core Lido protocol should introduce support for this new type of withdrawal credentials, and for such a large protocol as Lido, such a change cannot be done recklessly, so it will definitely take some time. And the next thing is to consider the demand for this validators, because if you are scaling validators, if you are transitioning from 32 ETH to 2048 ETH, bond requirement would inevitably increase. And as we see from the real on-chain data about CSM, approximately 30% of CSM node operators are currently running between 1 and 3 validators, which means that with CSM for large validators, they would most likely not be able to participate. But we are definitely investigating this option, and in the nearest future, we will come up with the plans regarding that for the protocol in general and for CSM specifically. So should there be a demand, a separate version of CSM using the existing code base with no additional audits might be deployed alongside the existing CSM that will only allow for large validators. So we're definitely investigating this topic, but by default, CSM version 2 will still only support 0x01 validators.
Got it. That's really helpful context. Thank you. All right. I don't see any questions, like further questions in the chat. So I guess we can move on to a really quick intermission so that we can show the.
Hello, everyone. So this is the last presentation for today. It's also my first time showcasing in one of these calls after joining as a contributor to Lido and the node operator mechanisms. And we're gonna spend this time talking about auxiliary proposer mechanisms. Now, I'm pretty confident that the majority of the audience probably hasn't heard much about this or even heard this term before. The thing is that a group of contributors has developed this framework by engaging with a lot of the research and development teams that are developing new infrastructure for Ethereum, and as well as to support all the emerging tools that are popping up in the validator landscape. And today we want to do a basic introduction, hopefully not a lot of content, but a lot of context for the community about this framework, and to talk a little bit about why now, why we needed to develop this, and our proposal going forward for engaging with these protocols. Let's get into it. And my name is Gabriela, and here we go. So Lido DAO and the contributors have been engaging with advanced protocol and advanced proposal activities on Ethereum since the merge, if we count MEV Boost, which is part of the framework, but much more actively since last year when we introduced the purge proposal. This was basically just a way for protocols and projects that are seeking participation from node operators that use the Lido protocol to request coordination for testing and evaluation to include them in mainnet. One of the things that we noticed in the last year and year and a half was just the level of acceleration and the expansion of validator duties and the potential to just augment and improve various aspects of block production, things like efficiency, user experience, networking, even the potential for cross-chain or cross-layer communication without fundamentally altering Ethereum's consensus rules. So we saw, for example, the boom with pre-confirmations and now native rollups, as well as some positive movement towards the adoption of these by big node operators and members of our curated set. So why now? As we can see, Ethereum's block proposal landscape has definitely undergone very significant transformation over these years. And from that came the motivation for us to also accelerate how we are thinking, how we are considering and interacting with all the new developments. Now, while these changes create new opportunities, they also introduce some challenges and new incentives into the protocol. So for Ethereum, well, we have seen that the need for them to, or for the protocol to very rapidly evolve just to keep up with the demand and all the latest innovations, while also trying to maintain the right incentives for node operators. For validators, we have seen we have to keep up with them, with all the innovations as well, but also balance decentralization, efficiency, and also how profitable their operations are, especially for smaller node operators, are definitely thinking about this. And even for large size staking protocols like Lido, any new proposer side infrastructure can only be introduced just very carefully. On one side, if we're open this up for everyone and we make it like a very overly permissive system, it risks a lot of market fragmentation, which benefits not Lido, not the stakers, not the users, not Ethereum. And additionally, because of the significant value that is in Lido's node operator set, if these sidecars also introduce new incentives, the protocol must also ensure it captures some of the value to maintain just their own sustainability of the protocol. And yes, for these reasons, APMs must be carefully evaluated just to protect all the value and preserve a high quality proposer ecosystem, which we're trying to build here, the best node operator ecosystem. So APMs provide an approach to help market participants navigate these trade-offs. So we get into APMs. APMs can be thought of as a framework for understanding and reasoning about all the mechanisms that are available to block proposers that basically enhance the block proposal functionality. And as we see in screen, at the core of the framework, there are three main components, which are the mechanisms, the protocols, and the sidecars. So this is going to be a little bit of content. I'm going to give some examples later, but basically a mechanism is a distinct objective that is paired with a method and is designed to achieve an objective that is within Ethereum block proposal process. They basically outline what is possible, what is the objective, and how it can be achieved, but they do not prescribe any single implementation of way of achieving that goal. Basically, it is used to inform the designs that can come up from the mechanism. Then we have things like protocols, and protocols are already the structure a specification of one mechanism, and they define basically all the rules or the configurations, etc., on how any particular mechanism can operate within the Ethereum ecosystem. They can actually be things that happen in protocol, out of protocol. They can be a mix of those. And finally, we have the sidecars, and these are the most well-known part, maybe, but they are the services of the software that basically is designed to support a protocol or the functionality of a protocol or many protocols, and essentially implement parts of this protocol to allow the participants to interact with each other. Block proposals archives operate alongside the validators to perform the tasks. And in order to understand how the general components interact with each other, we can see it in a graph like this. Any single mechanism can actually be implemented by multiple protocols, which can also rely on like a different number of sidecars. This generally is like a one-to-many relationship, where one mechanism can have many protocols. Each protocol can be enabled by multiple sidecars, and even sidecars can support multiple protocols. That's basically a vision of it, but I think it's easier if we see it with an example. So one of the most well-known examples of what could be an APM is used all the time for MEV extraction, and it's called PBS. So in the default Ethereum configuration, block proposals build blocks locally, and they base this just on the local view they have on the mempool. However, with the introduction of PBS, this separates the task of building and proposing the blocks into two different block roles that happen. And this can be implemented in a myriad of ways. The most widely recognized implementation of PBS is MEV Boost. MEV Boost is both a protocol and a sidecar, which can be a little bit confusing. But as a protocol, MEV Boost defines what is an out-of-protocol specification of PBS, meaning that the interactions between the block builders, the proposers, the relays all happen outside the Ethereum's core protocol. While as a sidecar, MEV Boost provides the client-side software that block proposals run to participate in the MEV Boost protocols. And builders, relays, proposers, all of them use different client software to interact with the protocol. However, there are other sidecars that implement MEV Boost, for example, Commit Boost. And as a counterexample, in the previous slide, we saw that there are other in-protocol implementations of PBS that are directly tied to consensus clients. So we can see that APMs don't necessarily rely on third-party software, but a lot of times they might. So that was basically an explanation of what we're trying to use here. Finally, we also want to quickly go over the proposed vetting of these APMs from the Lido protocol and how we're trying to think about it. Now, considering all those motivations that we mentioned before, we wanted to talk about steps that are a prerequisite and also there's next steps after that. I'm not going to expand on this right now a lot, and I will link the introduction form post later, just if you want to take a further look. I just want to highlight a couple things in here. Basically, before the formal DAO considerations, APMs must have measures of performance, security, documentation, but also importantly, they need to establish a very transparent incentive distribution path. Basically, if their plan is to have such incentives, which is a big part of the consideration that we are going to have for APMs. Then basically we go into the testing and community engagement phase, and we're still maintaining the purge proposal that we have been using with some testnet trials with a certain number of keys, and also reviewed by community members and also contributors. And also we want to highlight that we are in the process of actually submitting or voting for the creation of a new APM committee that will oversee basically the APM mainnet allowed list to the DAO. So on this, we're going to have more information soon. Basically what this the mandate is going to be, and also which community members are going to take part of this. And also with that discussion will be live soon. And basically one last caveat has to do with the block proposals rewards policy. And yeah, a couple comments on this. Basically, the policy must evolve to basically define the expectations for APM integrated node operators, and also ensuring transparency between the proposal strategies that are allowed. So one next step, or the big next step that we're going to have here, is that Lido DAO contributors are currently preparing a proposal for these updates that we are hopeful is going to be also in the forums very soon, to enable these APMs to actually be used in mainnet. So far, this has not been allowed by the current policy. And this is just a list of the current protocols, all the protocols that we are engaging with at the moment, and the ones that have talked to us. But yeah, we also have on the next slide the form post linked and with a QR code, so you can actually go and just get a lot more information about this framework that we're gonna propose and that we're gonna use to start evaluating and thinking about all these new protocols. And I just basically want to do a brief conclusion. This ecosystem is expanding, we're evolving, and Lido is also trying to evolve to adapt these new things very responsibly. And we think APM provide a very structured way to evaluate and integrate these things, but we actually need you. We need the community's input to refine and also improve on this framework. So I think some call to actions, how to contribute. You can join the discussion in the Lido research forum, the QR code that was before, and also help review and test new APMs, and also share feedback, suggestions. All of that will be very appreciated. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Really, really great presentation, Gabriela. Thank you for presenting that kind of like taxonomy, I guess, or even like an ontology about how to think of these things that to a certain extent have kind of like been disparate and disconnected in the past. But you've like found a common thread through all of them, and some way for the protocol and the community around the protocol to reason about the stuff holistically. Maybe just to kind of like quickly hammer on the call to actions at the end. I guess if we identify like three main actors involved in this system, and I can go through one by one, like what is the call to action? So let's say that you're a node operator that is interested in participating in testnets. What should they do?
Well, they should first identify the different purchases that we have open. All the teams are asking for node operators to test and express their interest in participating in those, and we'll get in contact and organize all that.
Awesome. And what if you are a protocol in the sense of like a protocol within APM or a sidecar developer?
Yeah, you in that case, get in touch with us, or we'll help you set up an introduction in the forum. You'll need to post that, and also you'll need to set up your purge proposal and post that on the forum as well, so node operators can be in contact.
All right. And if you're interested in somehow participating in the community vetting process, either just kind of like providing feedback around like the usage of this framework and maybe assessing some of these solutions, or applying to be on the APM committee, what should you do?
Yes, all the fun is happening in the forums, and that will be in the forum post where we introduce the APM system. That's where you can also express all your feedback, and we'll give more information there about the committee.
All right. All the fun is happening on the forums. All right. Things I did not expect to hear. Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who tuned in today. We kept it short and svelte, but packed full of information. And I think also like a lot of things to kind of like step off of and getting like involved in helping provide feedback on CSM Evolution and on the APM framework. So looking forward to people's thoughts on that. As Gabriela said, all the fun is happening on the forums. Thank you, everybody. And that wraps it up for today. We will do an outro, hopefully with some tunes, like usual. Thanks to DJ Stu, and see you all next month.